Late night call. This happened to me just a couple days ago. Like most of the people in the world, my cell phone is permanently attached to their hands, as was mine. I keep it charged all day long, and when the battery runs low, I plug it in. Except on weekends. I don't like to be bothered, so most weekends from Friday till Sunday evening, my phone will be dead and it'll stay that way until I plug it back on Sunday. Well, this last Friday, my wife and kids were gone for the weekend, and I was home alone, no surprise there. Anyways, after work at about 6, when I got home, I had about 15% life left on my phone. And my wife knows I won't charge my phone for the weekend, and if she wants to get a hold of me, she could send me a Facebook message. My tablet is always charged, or I'm on the computer playing games anyways. I had dinner, watched some TV, and by the time it was 8, my phone was dead, so I threw it on the nightstand, so I do have to look at it for a later time. So I went about my night, and I played a couple rounds of Call of Duty Black Ops 3 before deciding to go to bed at around 1:30 a.m. in the morning. I am a pretty heavy sleeper, and I'm not one to wake up unless my alarm goes off in the morning, but at around 3, my alarm did go off, and I found it strange. Why would I have the alarm set to go off at 3? I didn't think too much of it, so I lay back down in bed, and I was just about to shut my eyes when all of a sudden, my phone starts ringing, and 2 things came to my mind when that happened. 1, the ringtone was not that I had for oncoming calls, and the other one obviously being that I knew that my phone was dead. I opened my eyes, and I can see the brightness of my screen on the wall, so I know I wasn't imagining things. I had a cold chill run down my back as I turned around to reach for my phone to see who was calling. It was no one, and I don't mean an unknown number. I mean it was a white screen with only the slide to answer or decline buttons on the screen. I was already awake and afraid, so whether or not I answered the call, it didn't matter. I picked up and hesitated and put the phone to my ear. I said hello and didn't get a response. So I said hello again, and I could hear a faint whisper but couldn't make out the words. Then I heard a laughter that chilled me to the bone, and it startled me that I dropped my phone. Just as it hits the bed, I could hear the sinister laugh coming out from my speakers, and behind its laughter I heard screaming. I couldn't move, and I'm not sure how long it lasted, but it felt like minutes before it all stopped. Screen turned off and my room was dark again. Only the red glow from my alarm clock was illuminating my room. I was still shocked, looking at my phone the whole time without even blinking. I reached to grab my phone, and the first thing I did was try and turn it on. Nothing. Like I said before, I know my phone was dead. So I turned my bedroom lights on and plugged in my phone. I went back to bed, and in the morning, I turned my phone on and checked my calls. Nothing. I can't explain it, but I do hope someone has a similar experience happen to them. I would like to hear from you and let me know what you think of my experience. Thanks. Phone calls I don't want during an extended bout of insomnia. So this happened a long time ago. When I was in college, I went through a severe bout of depression. All in all, I rarely slept, or I slept badly with lurid nightmares. My doctor kept trying to find me the right combination of medications to relieve my worsening symptoms and worsening health, declining every single day. But each and every drug given had side effects and very, very little benefits. During this time period, however, I spent my nights awake watching movies on my DVD player. It was in the early aughts, and that was the extent of the technology I had access to. In fact, I didn't even have a laptop with Wi-Fi. This was also before the advent of smartphones. It was only the second year of having any cell phone for myself. My primitive Nokia flip phone had no ability to block or trace any number. Then the calls started. They came from a spoofed number that came up as my own digits, and always between the hours of midnight to 3 p.m. Again, this was before it was common to ignore the phone, and especially from any unknown numbers. Even with this in mind, beyond any reasonable explanation, I've always felt compelled to answer the call and talk to whoever or whatever was on the other line. Maybe it was due to my depression. I don't know. I was just a lonely person in general. Now, the voice on the other end was a man, speaking in a falsetto, pretending to be a woman. Like this. The best way I can describe it is that he sounded like Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs in the background. The sound of rushing traffic on a busy street, or some kind of a highway, filled the pauses in between his words. I got the sense that whoever the caller was lived outside. I was out of it when I picked up the phone, usually coming straight out of unconsciousness, and I would say, hello, and the falsetto voice would answer me over the rushing cars. It made me think he was under a payphone, under a freeway underpass, or at least near it. Who is this? You don't know? He would reply with indignation as though I was in the wrong. No, who is this? He wouldn't answer, and so I eventually made small talk. Why? I don't know. I have no memory about what we discussed. At some point after a few of the calls, I asked if the voice was a woman I had known or went out with a few times. I mean, I've dated both men and women, and the voice said yes. Why I asked this, even though I knew it was not a woman, is beyond my own understanding at this point. I was in a trance, a suspended state between consciousness and shallow sleep that made me malleable and open to the most outrageous of suggestions. Eventually, though, I would snap out of it and hang up, my heart raging in my chest, locking the bedroom door. I would even push furniture against it to ensure that nothing could breach my dark bedroom. Although the call seemed to come from a big city, I always guessed Los Angeles for its proximity. There was nothing that proved the caller wasn't in my backyard or even sitting downstairs. It happened at least 5 times, I'm sure, maybe even more. I don't really recall. The last time I received a call from my phone number in the middle of the night, I mustered up the agency to snap out of the trance and shout, "Stop calling me!" After a pause on the other end, the voice answered, "Shut up!" in a low and guttural scream. A wall of fury blasted out my end of the phone. It didn't sound human. Out of everything I've experienced, this voice sticks with me and haunts me above everything else. After I told it to go away, the person or thing never called me again. The most logical explanation I can honestly think of this whole thing is that it was a homeless man with a cell phone who figured out how to spoof my number. But it felt much more horrible and dark. My guts churn when I think about 10 years later. And this is definitely not a fictional story. I wish. Late night call as a private investigator. As you might guess, I, as private investigator, enjoyed strange and even creepy oddities. I spend a lot of my leisure time indulging in reading and listening for various horror stories and podcasts. The few I heard recently were from the point of view of a private investigator. This actually inspired me, if you will, to share some of my experiences as a private investigator. This will be a several-part series covering all the weird shit I've dealt with in my profession. Albeit some of it may seem mundane and not at all horrific. However, they are creepy nonetheless, given the context of this whole situation. This first story is the least frightening. However, it gives me the chills still, especially due to my over-analytic nature, which I will say is required in this field. Anyways, this event took place on a warm, still night in August. My consultancy is located in a small town with a population of roughly 500 or so in southern Washington state. The town is surrounded with flourishing forests, not to mention the beautiful Gifford-Pinchot National Forest to the west, along with a grand view of Mount St. Helens. We get an occasional flow of tourists looking for a quaint place to stay, but other than that, we are a quiet town. I will spare all of you the details and features and move on to the story. However, I will be happy to answer any questions in which you may have. As I recently said, the event took place on a still and warm August night. It was stiflingly humid. Out for it has just rained the past several days periodically. In my consultancy, which we will call the PIHQ, Private Investigation Headquarters, just for the hell of it. I was just doing some surfing on the web, something I do often to just pass the time. As I mentioned before, the town and the nearby proximity are pretty desolate. There will be large gaps of time between cases. As I recall, it was around 11 p.m. or so at night when I heard the phone ring. I've never established a closing time or do not call period because I was always licking my choppers for a good case. I flung out of my slouch on the chair and rushed to pick up the phone and greet the caller. On the other end, I hear heavy breathing. It was calm and controlled, in no way hyperventilating, so I figured it was just a heavy-set guy. I waited a few seconds for a response. However, none came. I reminded the caller who I was and if they had the right person. No response. I was about to hang up, and that's when I heard a shrill voice of a woman on the other end. Clearly not the caller's, but another voice in their surrounding environment. The shrill voice murmured something along the lines of, "Dave, the police turned up nothing. We lost him, Dave, we lost him." I began to listen intently, not wanting to disturb this whole friggin' conversation. "Dave, put the phone down, dear. Put the phone down." After this, there was a dead silence on the other end. After a few seconds, I hear muffled sounds of the phone being set down on some surface. "That's right, baby. Now come back to bed." I then hear the phone being picked out once more. The shrill voice calmly and ominously said, "He's dead, Dave. Our son is dead. There's nothing you can do to change that. Come back to bed." The breathing of the caller picks up again. He quietly says to her, "You did it. I know you did it." He frantically breathes in on the other end to me. "I want out. I want out. Save me from this psycho bitch." The phone hung up. I have no idea where this phone call came from, for I had no technology to trace the calls. What creeps me out the most is the contrast of emotions between the two people. The shrill woman's voice was so calm, quiet, and seemingly psychotic, while the man's voice was anxious and felt completely threatened for his life. After that, I lost many nights of sleep, overthinking what possibly happened to the son who passed away, and the man himself who screamed for help from the shrill voice I heard on the other end of the line, the woman's voice. Along with all this confusion and mystery, I am also dumbfounded as to why this man contacted my agency, which is pretty elusive to find, to be honest, and not the police. Maybe he thought I was, but I wasn't, and I am not. There is no way I can help him. As a private investigator, in the end, I could offer no immediate help to his situation of emergency, it seems. So, anyways, I would like to hear your guys' opinions on this whole matter, please.